Welcome back, guys! My life is finally back on track. As you can see, we've got a brand new setup and equipment. I hope this helps make your experience even more immersive. Does the shelf look a little empty? I haven't quite figured out what to put there yet. Or maybe someone wants to advertise there? Alright, enough chit-chat. Let's dive into today's story. Now, if people turn into ghosts after they die, what happens when a ghost dies? Have you ever thought about that? This story comes from a 2021 post on the Douban forum. A user by the name of An Innocent Person claimed he and his wife were experiencing something truly unexplainable. They said they were at their wits' end and reached out to the internet for help. But no one expected that this post blew up across the Chinese internet. This story is split into two parts. This video is just the beginning. To help you really feel the tension, I'll be telling the story in first-person view, just like it was originally posted. And keep an eye on the comments people left under the post. Some of them are pretty wild and might just give you a whole new perspective. Also, keep an eye out for this little ghost. Whenever it shows up, a scary image will appear 5 seconds later. I'm just an ordinary guy from Chongqing province. I joined the military in 2007 and became a special forces soldier. In 2014, I retired from service and started working for a state-owned enterprise. On paper, I've always had a clean background and a rock-solid belief in materialism. But even with that kind of foundation, something happened recently that's made me seriously question everything I thought I knew. That's why I'm here, hoping someone out there can help me make sense of it all. And what I'm about to share is 100% real. This happened just a week ago. For work convenience, I rented an apartment near my company. It's just me and my wife living there. One night last week, my wife told me she hadn't been sleeping well lately. Every time she drifted off, she'd get sleep paralysis. I brushed it off at first. I mean, sleep paralysis is a common thing, probably just her getting used to a new place, right? I comforted her, told her not to overthink it. But then, one night, something really strange happened. That night, I was watching the Euro Cup and really getting into the game. All of a sudden, my wife screamed out my name. It scared the hell out of me and I jumped up and ran to the bedroom. She was sitting on the bed, terrified, and said, I don't know why, I dreamed a girl walked out of the wall. She was wearing clothes from the Republican era and asked me if she could come in. Then I woke up scared out of my mind. Oh, another nightmare, I figured. I calmed her down and she eventually went back to sleep. Then nothing else happened that night. The next day, I saw her searching for ghost stories online, probably trying to find an explanation or some comfort. I laughed a little to myself, thinking she was just getting spooked by superstition. But looking back now, the joke was on me. A couple of days later, during the Euro Cup knockout rounds, I wasn't that interested in the match, so I went to bed early. But not long after, I woke up and realized I couldn't move. Damn, am I having sleep paralysis too now? I struggled with all my strength, finally managed to crack open one eye. Through the blur, I saw two people standing at the foot of the bed, two girls, both dressed in old school uniforms from the Republican era. One had long hair, the other short. I stared at them, frozen. Then the short-haired girl said my name and asked something. I didn't quite catch what she said, but I did hear her mention a place called Xincheng. I thought she was asking for directions, so I started racking my brain, trying to remember if there was a place by that name nearby. But nothing came to mind. Suddenly, I could move again. I shut up and checked the time, 4:30 a.m. It was just starting to get light outside. Thinking back to what my wife said a few nights ago, I realized maybe this isn't just in our heads. Maybe something's really wrong. Without hesitation, I woke my wife up immediately and told her what happened. She's always believed in the supernatural, so the moment she heard it, she called her mom back in our hometown to ask for help. The next morning, my mother-in-law rushed over to our place. She'd gone to a well-known toys master and got 3 protective talismans. One was to be stuck with our bed, one on the bedroom door frame, and the third one needed to be burned. To be honest, even at that point, I was still pretty skeptical. I figured maybe I was just having weird dreams because of all the things my wife had been saying, but seeing how serious and jittery they both looked, I didn't want to argue. I just went along with it. Once everything was in place, my wife and I went out to get a massage. After all those nightmares, we really needed to be unwind. By the time we got back, it was already 11:30 p.m. I quickly washed up and got ready to watch the Euro Cup. Then I noticed we were out of water, so I ran downstairs to grab some. Before I left, I glanced at the talisman on the bedroom door frame. It looked totally fine, but when I got back, it was gone. My mind went blank. Could it have been the wind? But I was the one who put it up. I remember using a ton of glue. That thing shouldn't have come off in 10 years, let alone an hour. A bad feeling crept over me. I searched up crazy but came up empty. Finally, I grabbed a stool to get a closer look, and just as I got near the frame, I smelled it. Burnt paper. And sure enough, there were tiny bits of ash stuck to the door frame. I immediately asked my wife and mother-in-law if either of them touched the talisman. Both of them shook their heads and looked freaked out. Now, none of us even dared to fall asleep. We made it through the night in a daze. As soon as it got light out, my mother-in-law called the toys master. Hearing the story, he paused for a moment and said, "That's strong?" And he still couldn't give a clear explanation for why it happened. Later, my wife suggested we go to Lao Jundong Temple, a well-known toy site nearby. Maybe a proper toys priest there could help. When we got there, we visited the Senqing Hall to pray, then went to the Jade Emperor Hall. After that, we drew a fortune stick. I knelt down in front of the deities and silently prayed for peace and safety, then shook the canister and pulled out the stick. It was a lucky sign. I was thrilled and immediately took it to a priest to get it interpreted. He asked what I prayed for, and I said, "Peace and safety." He nodded and replied, "That's a good wish. It's possible. But your luck's not so great right now." Hearing that gives me chills. I thought, wow, maybe this guy really knows something. So before I walked away, I quietly told him I'd wait for him outside. About 2 or 3 hours later, the priest finally came out. He sat beside me and asked what kind of help I needed. So I told him everything, in full detail, from the nightmare to the burning talisman. He listened carefully, then used divination to check things out. The result? He said we had offended Tai Sui, the Grand Duke Jupiter. Then he said he could make me a ritual charm to stop the nightmares, and once the nightmares were gone, we could figure out the rest. That night, after we got home, everything seemed normal. We washed up and went to bed, but this time, both my wife and I experienced sleep paralysis at the exact same time. We didn't see the 2 schoolgirls again, but it was still unnerving. Early the next morning, the toys priest messaged us, asking us to come see him again. When we got there, he'd brought along another priest, his apprentice. He told us this young priest might be able to help with our situation. We explained everything to the apprentice, and after listening carefully, he said it sounded like there were already spirits in the apartment, and our moving in had disturbed them. Later, he changed into his toys robes, saying he was going to do a simple ritual. First, he sprinkled a bowl of water over both of us, then lightly patted our backs. After that, he gave us a fan, a calabash gourd, and 3 talismans. He explained one was for protecting the house, and the other 2 were for warding off nightmares. The fan and gourd should be placed together, and the talismans needed to be stuck onto our door. Then he handed me a couple of toy scripture books and told us to recite the Earth Deity Mantra and the Golden Light Mantra out loud every night before bed. If we got sleep paralysis again, we were to shout, 9天应元雷声普化天尊, and that would instantly wake us up. Before we left, he added that He'd come to our house on the second day of the next lunar month to check things out in person. If the situation was right, he'd then perform a ritual to drive the spirits away. Once we got home, we did exactly as instructed, and strangely enough, that night we both slept soundly. No dreams, no sleep paralysis, nothing. But that peace only lasted for one night. The next evening, around 11 p.m., I noticed one of the talismans was missing again. This time, I immediately grabbed a stool and checked for any signs of burning, but nothing. Suddenly, I noticed the talisman that had been stuck above the door frame had moved to the wall behind the door, and all the glue was gone. So, the talisman was clinging to the wall on its own, spinning slowly in place. I know how crazy this sounds. You are probably thinking I've lost it, but I swear every word is true. I shouted for my wife. The second she saw what was happening, her face turned pale as shit. We quickly snapped a bunch of photos and sent them to the young priest right away. He replied almost instantly. He told us to recite the golden light mantra out loud and then burn the talisman, making sure to send him a picture of the ashes. We did everything exactly as he said. After that, the young priest told us we couldn't afford to wait any longer. He'd come to our house tomorrow afternoon to take a look himself. In the meantime, we needed to prepare a few things for the ritual: cinnabar, white liquor, uncooked rice, and yellow rice wine. The next afternoon, right on time, the young tourist priest showed up at our place. He had changed into his robes, and as soon as he stepped through the door, he started pacing around the apartment, holding a wooden sword. He walked slowly, stopping every now and then to touch the walls, like he was sensing something. Then, out of nowhere, he took a sip of some water and suddenly spat it out to the wall of our master bedroom. After that, he turned to me and asked, "Have you smelled anything weird lately? Or noticed anything in the house that just feels off? Like you instinctively don't want to look at it?" I shook my head. Without missing a beat, he poured the cinnabar and white liquor into a bowl and started mixing. As he stirred, he explained, "Whatever the thing is, it's a recent visitor. I'll try to negotiate with it first. Say if it's willing to leave quietly. If that fails, then I'll drive it out." While he was still talking, he had already drawn a talisman and headed straight into the master bedroom, leaving me and my wife sitting anxiously in the living room. 20 minutes later, the young tourist came back out, soaked in sweat. "No good. Negotiations failed. We'll have to exorcise it." He quickly drew several more talismans. He said they were Wu Yue talismans, powerful ones, and then poured half a bowl of uncooked rice, stuck 3 incense sticks into it, placed a bowl in the master bedroom, and got back to the living room. "We'll check back in 20 minutes, he said. "Depending on what happens to the incense, we'll know how hostile the spirit really is." Another 20 minutes passed. We walked into the bedroom again and saw that all 3 incense sticks had gone out. But what killed us was that their lengths were uneven. 2 were short, 1 was long. The toy's face changed. "This is bad. It means the spirit has no intention of settling things peacefully. And it's a lot more dangerous than I originally thought." He grabbed more talismans and went back into the bedroom alone. He chanted scriptures for a while, then placed the talisman in 5 different spots around the room. After that, he asked me to bring him 2 mirrors. He painted symbols onto one of the mirrors and told me in a serious tone, "This mirror must never reflect a human face, ever. Hide the other one somewhere safe. If you see those 2 girls again, the ones you mentioned, use the second mirror to shine the light at them." After finishing all that, we sat down in the living room to chat. About 10 minutes later, the toy suddenly said, "Wait, do you hear that?" My heart instantly jumped to my throat. I held my breath, and sure enough, I could hear faint little crackling noises, like dry rice jumping around on the floor. The toy snatched up his wooden sword and rushed straight into the room. We followed close behind. And then, something happened that I still can't believe. One of the 5 talismans stuck around the room had somehow been torn off. No one had touched it. And then, out of nowhere, the mirror with the painted spell exploded. Glass flew across the entire room like shrapnel. Get out now! The toys shouted. We scrambled out of the bedroom as fast as we could. Catching his breath, the toy sighed and said, "There's only one move left. I'll call on the Northern Emperor's talisman. If that doesn't work, then you two have to move out. Immediately. No other choice." He sat down and carefully drew another series of complex symbols. Then, chanting under his breath, he pasted the talisman on the back of the master bedroom door. 10 minutes later, that eerie sound of rice jumping returned. The toys jumped to his feet, flung open the bedroom door, and froze. The Northern Emperor's talisman had been crumpled into a ball, as if someone or something had crushed it with their bare hands. Seeing this, his face turned pale, and hands were shaking as he pulled out his phone and called his master. I couldn't hear exactly what he said, but the gist was clear. We have to leave now. He then brought us into the bedroom, knelt on the floor, chanting a short passage, basically an apology to whatever was in there. Then, without another word, he bolted for the front door in a full-on panic. My wife and I just stood there in shock, didn't know what to do. Seeing this, the toys turned back and shouted, "What are you waiting for? Unless you want to die, get moving now!" That snapped us out of it. The three of us sprinted out of the apartment building like our lives depended on it. Once we finally got far enough away, the toys catch his breath and said, "This thing is beyond my abilities. Worse yet, now that I've meddled in it, the spirit has locked onto me too. I'll have to go into hiding at the temple for the next few days. And as for us," he told us, in no uncertain terms, we were never to go back to that apartment again, not even to grab our stuff. And just like that, we were fugitives from our own home, with just our phones and car keys. We drove as far as we could and ended up checking into a hotel that night. By the time we got to the hotel, it was already past 6 in the evening. My mind was a mess, shaken, curious, and most of all, terrified of what the night might bring. One question kept looping in my head. If that thing wasn't tied to the apartment itself, would it follow us to the hotel? And if it did, where could it possibly run to next? After getting settled, we called the old toy's priest and told him everything that had happened. He instructed us to recite the scripture before bed that night and asked us to visit him again the next day. We'd been through so much that day, my wife fell asleep early. I, on the other end, was still on edge. I left the TV on and tried to stay awake, but eventually I drifted off without realizing it. Thankfully, nothing happened that night. The next morning, I woke up feeling strangely clear-headed. Honestly, it was the best sleep I'd had in days. For a moment, I even wondered, was all of that just a dream? After a quick breakfast, my wife and I drove back to the Laojundong temple. The master took one look at me and frowned. He said my spiritual aura was all over the place, then told me to draw a divination stick to say what the heavens had to say. Kneeling in the shrine, I couldn't help but ask myself, why? Why is this happening to me? I'm just a regular guy. I haven't done anything bad. Why did this thing choose me? Before I realized it, a stick had fallen out. I took it to get the interpretation, and the answer I received was 钟馗得道, literally means 钟馗attains the power. Then the old toys explained what it meant, an empty celebration gained only to be lost. Hearing that shook me. So this can be resolved. It's all for nothing. Maybe sensing my emotion, the priest tried to comfort me, said everything would pass with time. We left around 6 in the evening. The sky was growing darker again, and so was my mood. But what we didn't know was that everything so far had just been the warm-up. The real nightmare was only beginning. That night, not long after I fell asleep, I had a dream. In the dream, someone was calling my name. Terrified, I forced my eyes open and found I wasn't in the hotel anymore. I was standing in the middle of a desolate, open field. That's when I knew the nightmare was back. I took a few steps forward. In the distance, I saw 3 figures, On the right, it was the two Republican little girls again, but on the left, I couldn't make out who that was. The face stayed blurry. I started panicking. Could they hurt me in here? And just like that, I snapped awake, drenched in cold sweat. I immediately woke my wife. She hadn't had any dreams, but she said she'd experienced sleep paralysis. After a long discussion, we agreed. No more sleeping that night. We just sat on the bed, talking softly, counting down the hours until sunrise. As soon as it got light, I grabbed the phone and called the old host again. He was surprised too. He'd assumed the spirit was attached to the house. Once we left, we'd be safe. But now, hearing that it had followed us, his tone changed. This was bigger than he thought, so he asked us to meet him again urgently. When we met him, I described everything I saw in the dream. This time, he fell silent. He sat there, deep in thought, for quite a while. Then, he performed a small ritual for me and finally spoke. According to him, those two spirits weren't after me. They were after my wife. But for some unknown reason, I had been the one bearing the brunt of it all. What's more, these entities were likely connected to my wife from a past life. She had reincarnated, but they hadn't. And now, they had come to find her. Before we left, the toys gave me his ceremonial robe. He told me to keep it next to me while I slept, or even wear it, just in case. Back at the hotel, my mind was spinning. Past lives? Spirits chasing us across reincarnations? It sounded like something out of a fantasy novel. I couldn't stay still. I went downstairs, brought a pack of cigarettes, and wandered through a busy part of the town for a bit. Being among people helped ease the fear, at least a little. Around 1 a.m., I returned to the hotel. Saying that my wife was already asleep, I finally let myself drift off. And then it happened again. Someone was calling my name. I opened my eyes, and just like the night before, I was back in that same barren field. The same three shadowy figures stood before me. But this time, I was completely lucid. I knew I was dreaming, so I told myself, this time, pay attention, look carefully, remember everything. Slowly, I began to see the third figure clearly for the first time. It was a man dressed like a Taoist priest, but he wore a black robe. In front of him was a small table. On the table sat a strange statue, completely black, radiating an unsettling aura. In front of the statue, there was an incense burner, but the incense sticks were inserted upside down. That's when I noticed on the ground were black talismans drawn with golden ink, each one covered in strange symbols. That's when I woke up, heart pounding. I grabbed my phone and quickly jotted down everything I could remember from the dream. Okay, this sketch looks kinda abstract. But to be fair, when you just wake up from a dream, your mind's usually all over the place. So let's just keep going. The next morning, I called the tourist again. This time, there was no comfort in his voice. Instead, he grew serious. Have you offended anyone recently? On purpose or by accident? Think carefully. Anyone at all? My wife and I thought long and hard, but honestly, we couldn't think of anyone. We're both mild-mannered person, rarely get into the conflicts with others. We're just regular citizens. And it's not like we have any ties to powerful people who would go this far just to harm us. The old tourist went quiet for a while, then said next month, on the second day of the lunar calendar, he had to come to my home to take a closer look. And that's where the story pauses for now. As of this update, netizens have been flooding the original poster with suggestions. Some said, since he used to be in the special forces, he should try wearing his military badges, medals, or insignias, items that carry righteous energy. The poster replied that they actually had tried those things, but sadly, none of it worked. Others offered a different idea. Since the dream was his own, he should try to take control. Summon a spirit fighting entity within the dream, like Zhonghui, the ghost slayer himself. Of course, you know, if it were that simple, these Taoist priests would all be out of a job. So what happens next? I'll continue unraveling this case in the next video. And I promise you, how this story ends will leave you thinking long after it's over.